Hi there guys, and welcome to my latest episode. In this video we'll be taking a look at 5 serial killers who never existed. Serial killers have long been the focus of ghoulish fascination in the minds of the public. For most of us this is harmless, if a macabre look at the dark side of humanity. With that said, let's take a look at the list and see who make the top 5. Lucien Staniak. Lucien Staniak was a Polish serial killer nicknamed the Red Spider. He murdered multiple women between 1964 and 1967. After each murder, he wrote letters in his own blood, taunting the police for their inability to catch him. Eventually, he left a clean set of fingerprints on a bottle at the scene of the rape and murder of an 18-year-old student, which was remarkably accommodating of him. Staniak was arrested and explained that he was driven to murder to avenge his parents and sister, killed in a car accident, because their killers had never been brought to justice. He pleaded guilty to the murders of 20 women and was sentenced to death, although in the end this was commuted to life in an insane asylum. All of which, as it turns out, is complete rubbish. Staniak did not exist, the murders did not happen, and no one was ever prosecuted for them. It is thought that Mr. Staniak may have been a figment of the imagination of true crime writer Colin Wilson, who wrote the first known account of the Red Spider's career. This account was accepted as fact and circulated widely until researchers working on a biopic of the Red Spider and his crimes were forced to conclude that he had in fact never existed. Sweeney Todd. There's long been controversy about whether or not Sweeney Todd was a real person. The demon barber of Fleet Street supposedly slit his customers' throats with a razor and gave the bodies to his lover, Miss Lovett, to be turned into pies. Todd was born in 1756 and learned his trade in Newgate Prison, where he was jailed for petty theft. His first victim was a man with whom he'd argued, and after the easy disposal of the body, Todd is supposed to have developed his trick chair, which he used on wealthy customers foolish enough to attend his premises alone. When he kicked the lever, the chair would tip through a trapdoor to the cellar, whereupon Todd would slit their throats and strip the meat from their bones to make pie fillings. Sweeney Todd and Miss Lovett were arrested after the number of missing sailors in need of a shave in the area aroused suspicion. Mrs. Lovett confessed immediately before committing suicide. Todd went on trial in 1801, accused of the murder of a single sailor who'd been on his way to deliver a very large string of 16,000 pearls to a pawnbroker. The sailor, it seems, decided to stop off at Sweeney Todd's Emporium for a haircut and a shave on the way. When the premises were searched, police found belongings from 160 other people, suggesting that Todd may have been the most prolific killer ever. All of this sounds thrilling, but unfortunately none of it can be proved. Barbers at the time were sometimes also surgeons and grave robbers, and did therefore have a less than wholesome reputation. They could also perform tooth extractions, bloodletting and, disturbingly, enemas. However, there is no record of Sweeney Todd's arrest, trial or hanging, which supposedly happened in 1802. There's no report of any other barber committing multiple murders, nor are there any other newspaper archives of concern for missing sailors or strange tasting pies. But you know what? It does make for a good musical. The Phantom of Heilbronn. In 2009, German authorities offered a €300,000 reward for the capture of the woman without a face, who'd left traces of her DNA at murders and major crime scenes for over 15 years, including the murder of a police officer in Heilbronn. Investigators of the Heilbronn murder were shocked to discover that the DNA found at the scene matched genetic material from other dozens of cases. Unknown, Phantom of Heilbronn, as she was dubbed, had committed crimes all across Europe, ranging from murder to burglary and vehicle theft, and her crime spree continued. 3 corpses were dragged from a river near Frankfurt. 2 men were convicted of their murder, but traces of the Phantom's DNA were also found in the car. If the men knew who she was, they weren't telling. The first sample from the serial killer was taken from the rim of a teacup belonging to a woman strangled with a piece of wire. The DNA was then traced to a bullet in a gun fired by someone else. It was found in cars, on used syringes and on murder weapons galore. But despite the growing evidence, the police were stumped. They launched an intensive manhunt to find the woman, who was clearly dangerous. Late in 2009, however, they finally apprehended their suspect, only to find that the Phantom of Heilbronn was in fact an entirely innocent woman working in a factory that produced their DNA testing kits. How's that for a shocker? The Halifax Slasher. In 1938, 2 mill workers in Halifax, England, UK were attacked by a knife-wielding madman who was soon dubbed the Halifax Slasher. Over the following 9 days, more and more women fell victim to the slasher. Vigilante groups began to patrol the streets to protect their women and beat up anyone who looked suspicious. Scotland Yard was called in to catch the miscreant before someone was killed by the lynch mobs. As they interviewed victims, it soon became clear that the majority of their wounds had been self-inflicted. The events in Halifax were, it seemed, a classic case of mass hysteria. But what of the original 2 victims? They'd given a clear description of the slasher, down to the bright buckles on his shoes. They had blood streaming from their wounds in their heads. Surely their accounts were real? No, apparently they just made it up too. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon had a particular way of attacking his victims. Most serial killers commit their crimes over a number of years. He attacked 34 people over 2 weeks in 1944. Most serial killers like to watch their victims die. He attacked from a safe distance. Most killers favour guns, knives or blunt objects. As his name suggests, however, the Mad Gasser preferred the humble domestic oven. Some of the victims in Mattoon, Illinois became ill. Others found that they were paralysed. Luckily, no one actually died. No trace of gas was found in the houses, and there were no clues. Despite this, the newspapers ran stories of mad gassers and described the victims' symptoms in lurid detail. Over the next few days, more and more people, mostly those who had read the newspaper articles, fell victim to the gasser. Police continued to find no clues, nor any gas anywhere other than where it should have been. They did find a woman who came home to find a piece of cloth on the doorstep, which caused a burning sensation in her throat when, for reasons unknown, she put it to her face and inhaled. She also found a skeleton key and a stick of lipstick. Convinced that the gasser had been interrupted in the middle of the attack, investigators analysed the cloth, but no trace of toxic substances could be found. The key turned out to be an ordinary key, and the lipstick was just that. Lipstick. There seemed to be no motive for the attacks. No one had been assaulted and none of the houses had been robbed. The police concluded that there had never been any attacks at all, and the crimes were the result of mass hysteria brought on by inflammatory reporting of the first case. The police also suggested that the original case of poisoning might just possibly have been caused by chemical emissions from the factory next door. There you have it, guys. A quick top 5s. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to share, like, subscribe and comment below. Thanks for your support.